and not an absolute certainty of therefore. And
Yeah,
we are now live. So, hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight on the March 24th, 2023 episode of the Weekly Roundtable. I am one of your illustrious hosts, the amazing, talented, and lovely Frank Johnson. To my right on the screen is Peter Soma. If you want to know what the letters are, we'll put that in the comment section later. And below screen is Michael Vasquez, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, New York's only truly independent journalist, the only journalist in New York State with any goddamned integrity. That's Michael Vasquez. And boy, do we have a show for you tonight. The world, I don't know, is on fire every day. Donald Trump was arrested 17 times this week. He's already been convicted. Sentenced. I think right now he's at Gitmo. I think, unless they threw him off one of the ships.
And Facebook said bye.
I don't know. I don't know where Trump is right now, but oh boy, is he in deep?
Going to Waco?
Is he in deep? Yeah, yeah. I heard something about that.
Yeah, he's going to Waco, Texas.
I'm not going to try and figure out the logic of that right now, at least not
the
on
anniversary. It's the anniversary of Waco.
I was just going to say, because the mental jumping jacks that I would have to do would have to be done out loud, and I don't think anybody could follow that bouncing ball if they had four eyes.
But I know some people who may want to go to it, and I know it's in the anniversary of the Waco event, and it's going to be a abusive government statement.
Well, I don't want to be the guy to keep dredging stuff up, but part of the abuse of government was a ball that he pushed down that hill.
Partially, yeah.
Well, he was partially responsible for it, and I have said it once, I'll say it again. If the man has any intention of absolutely trying to secure not only the nomination, but the election, he's going to have to come to the American people with a couple of mea culpas for some of the things that happened under his watch that have now proven to be either detrimental to the cause of freedom and liberty or detrimental to the potential health of millions of Americans and people. And whether that be with the questions of the vaccines, letting loose the ATF, whatever that's going to be, putting faith in people that later turned out to be more power hungry than our good friends that Sleepy Joe is always coordinating efforts with over Xi Jinping, whatever his name is over there. Trump is going to have to make some admissions that things were not all huge and wonderful under his administration. He's going to have to own up and be honest about some of those things if he wants to gain the trust of a lot of the people that view him as sort of, not all that he's cracked up to be.
Yeah, but that's only one of the things. And
I'm just saying, he just can't come back as the alternative. He can't come back as the alternative too.
He won't win that way.
Back and run on a record that has so many things in it that were questionable. He can run on the positives, but a lot of the things that he did that were questionable in nature, he's going to have to say, I didn't look far enough into how this would affect people.
We're talking about the pandemic. We're talking about primarily the pandemic, and that's an issue the Dems don't want to attack. They don't want to go back on that because they look worse than he does. So he doesn't even have to touch that. Not to say he
doesn't have to touch that, but he can't keep talking about Operation Lightspeed, that it was this glorious success, not when we have so many questions that have still never been answered about all the died suddenlies and about all the complications that people have had from different vaccines. I'm waiting for our satellite image or whatever to stop breaking up now that I said the V word. And plus when you look at how many, look at the way the Democrats come out all the time for years and years. Big Pharma's the enemy, Big Pharma's the enemy, Big Pharma's the enemy. But then they turn around, they tout the vaccines, they tout Big Pharma. They don't complain about the billions and billions of dollars that Big Pharma has made in profits based on the pushing of what is in essence still an experimental vaccine that was mandated
That's
by
exactly what it
government
is.
to take. He's got to come out and say the mandates were wrong. The vaccine should have been completely voluntary, not compulsory. We should have been able to have more research. They should have been done on trial basis. I understand that,
Mm,
people did what
I,
they did,
I
but
understand what you're thinking, Frank. I do. That's not the way politically you move forward with it. And at some point he may in fact say some of the things you're talking about, but politically he has absolutely no need to do so. And that's because the Democrats won't touch this subject.
I
They're
know
not going to, they will not challenge him on this. This is an election issue.
I know he won't, but the people will. Because the people right now lived with 2 and 3 years of being locked
And it's
down,
Biden's fault.
having their businesses
And-
shut down, losing income, having fear,
And that-
side effects, watching their kids be forced
I
to wear
understand,
masks, all of that.
but that all hangs on Fauci. That all hangs on Biden and Harris.
I
It doesn't. He's inoculated
understand
against
that, but-
negatives on it.
But Fauci was there with him.
Yeah, and he's going
Right.
to say Fauci misled him
And that's what he needs
if it
to
comes
do.
up. If
And
it comes up,
well, that's what I'm saying. He needs to be able to come out and say that there were things he was wrong about, whether it was because everything was new, or he was ill-advised, or he was misled, or whatever the case is. He's got to say it, because you're going to have a lot of people that are just going to say, you know what, screw this guy if he can't own up to his mistakes. I'm not
There's-
voting for either
there's
one.
almost no one politically, and again, we're talking political versus independent fortitude, which are two very different realms. Politically, he has no need to say anything about it short term. Probably as we get closer to once we get into 2024, it may come up. It isn't an issue in demand because it's all hanging on Biden and the Democrats. They're the bad guys. They've got all the bad mojo from this, and he has nothing. While he could say something, and while he has an out politically, his advisors are going to tell him, "Don't even touch it. You don't need to. All you do is hurt yourself by even bringing it up." It opens him up for an attack that he doesn't need politically. That's the political stance on it.
Well, from the political end of it, but I can tell you that 20% of the people that I know that were diehard Trump people back in 2016 are not going to vote for him at all unless he's able to do something. And 20% is a big chunk of the conservative electorate.
Yeah, but I don't think the number is that big on this issue asking for that answer, at least at this time. If it comes to that, yeah, he'll
but
say
you
he's
know,
got an out.
this is a culmination of issues. This is a lot of different issues that are all the same people that question things about the vaccine, or the same people that question things about the ATF, are the same people that are going to question red flag laws. A lot of the things that he came out and said, when you start adding that up, you've got a block of voters that, if they're only a one voter issue, and then they turn around and somebody says, well, what about that? You turn them into a 2 voter issue or a 3 voter issue. And you start putting more and more pieces together. People are going to get mad.
I understand what you're saying, but and again, this is my political advisor hat, which I've done. And I've advised various campaigns. I talk with people about various things. So from a political advisory, it's not big enough of an issue. There's not enough of a groundswell. By speaking about it, he walks into a landmine that could lead to too many other issues. He starts falling down a trap that opens them up to attacks from Democrats on an issue they want to run from. They don't want to have this conversation, even to this day. I mean, they just came out with what was it? A court just advised, and I have it, that the mandates, the federal mandates, are still out. There it is. Federal employee mandate remains blocked after
That's
an
what
appeals
came out of
court.
the Fifth-
That
that
was
came out of the
today.
Fifth Circuit.
That came out of the Fifth Circuit.
See, I pay attention sometimes.
I don't know. So it's the Fifth Circuit ruling. So this is, again, bad news for Biden and the Democrats. And that's why it's not major news, why most of the media aren't covering this story. They're staying far away from this. They don't want to touch it. It's third rail for them because it opens up all the other wounds. It makes people remember everything else. They're never, I cannot imagine the Democrat that advisor who would say, yeah, step on this third rail because maybe we convince Trump to step in on a landmine. They're still going to get killed. They don't want to touch this.
Well, I just worry about what happens within the next, what is it? How many months are we out from an election? 16?
Yeah.
It's about 16 months out from the election. No. That somewhere between in that 16 months, right around October, when they usually drop the surprises on everybody, and it winds up pointing back at Trump for what the hell happened. And then they can say, oh, well, we just followed his lead because,
they can't, because what he'll do in his team is he'll show every single video from Cuomo to Biden to Harris saying, I'm not touching this vaccine if Trump is in office. I wouldn't trust it. And then they'll show the video 2 months after the election where they turned around and reversed their position, said, and everyone should get this vaccine. The video exists. It was national news, national coverage. So again, Democrats look worse. Trump may get some heat. They get 10 times the heat because not only did they flip-flop on this, they pushed it knowing it's an experiment.
But who's going to give them the heat, though?
That'll come from, if they attack him on that, Trump rolls out on them. That comes from everywhere.
Yeah, Trump rolls out on him, and then every network that covers one of his rallies gets booted off of satellite TV and cable, and then nobody.
Well, not as much now.
It's only all the heat is going to come from one burner on the stove.
No,
the media is not going to
it comes from
Democrats responsible.
No, they have to show Trump as the candidate. They would have to cover him. This is an issue. Could be, if it's brought up by the Democrats, it's a legitimate issue for him to talk about in any election. They can't stop it because the Democrats brought it up. So they have to cover his response on it. And that leads to the undercurrent, which I believe is a majority of independents and majority of Republicans and probably a small part of the Democrats, about, depending on the polling you look at, let's call it about 20% of Democrats. They're all pissed off about this experimental drug and its results. And that number is growing month after month as we're seeing more of the complications that no one knew what to expect, but here they are. Just like every other medication that's ever been made, they all have side effects. We're seeing what they are. They're becoming more and more defined and more tracing back to this experimental test run that we've been subjected to, and makes them look bad. So he's covered on this. And again, I want people to understand, I'm not advocating for not talking about this. I think it should be talked about. I agree with you, Frank, but I'm also letting people understand the political reality, which runs very different than what average Americans think. Politics doesn't work in that way. They really have a very twisted and very distanced point of view about a lot of these issues. And so that's why people shouldn't be surprised when they don't hear certain things like this, not hearing Trump walk up first thing and say this. It's because it's a politically distanced issue, which has nothing to do with anything else. Pete, you're quiet. I know you've nodded back and forth to both of us. What do you think about it?
I want to know who's paying us back.
Nodded back. Paying us back for what? What do you think about it? Oh my God. Go ahead.
I got some feedback.
That was me.
Nah, you got to shut your thing up over there. Well, this is all taxpayer funded. The government paid out trillions of dollars to get this vaccine rolled out there. Mm-hmm. Every single dime that's come back in has gone to Lilly, and their books they're cooking right now. Mm-hmm. So when's the taxpayer going to get paid back for all this free research and funding that we gave to them?
Never. That's part of the contract we signed. That's part of the contracts, several contracts that were signed in making this available to the public. One, we accepted that this was completely experimental and each of the companies were not responsible for anything that happens by introducing this to the public. We signed away all of the rights to the technologies, the developments of that drug, and any future drugs that go along with it. We get nothing. We get nothing. We spent the money. We built a $130 million factory in Germany to employ people in Germany to make the what do you call it? The tests, the tests. We spent $130 million for that, which is built right about now. The factory just got finished being built. They're going to start making the tests. This is all paid for by Biden. He did that in the first month that he was in office. And we're not getting that money back either. We're going to pay for the tests independently. So they're going to come over. And even if you get it free, it's going to be paid for. So that's just crazy. And I did see the King of Sandy comment, which I thought was a joke.
He is a joke, so don't even bother. He's already gone.
But I did notice it. It's just interesting that the trolls are hitting us again because why? We're having an honest conversation, good, bad, and indifferent. We're having the conversation. And you make a valid question, Pete, but that's the valid answer is it ain't going to happen. Sorry.
Not surprised. I mean, ask it's not a question when you know the answer, but just fed up. As it says on the screen, yeah, because I'm kind of in a yeah mood this week because no matter what comes out of anyone's mouth tonight, I've heard it. I expect it. I mean, the number of things stupid little things that I've seen this week, like this Biden with the $35 Medicaid. I believe it was Trump that had that. What was that, May 24th, 2020, 2018? That Trump was saying $35 medication for diabetics?
He said it in 18. He did it by executive order in 2020. And Biden, on the first day he was in.
He made it happen. He made it happen.
Yeah, Trump made it happen. They were.
No, Biden
made it happen.
Reversed it. No,
Biden is the one that made it happen.
He says
after he stopped it, increased the prices. And now that everyone forgot, now he's come out and basically reissued the same executive order. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, this thing against Trump now, but there are so many legitimate things to go after the man for. Going after him for a payment that he's accused of. Mm-hmm. I recall, what was it? Clinton's number was $850, wasn't it? He paid $850,000 for hush money.
Yeah, $850,000 to Paula Jones. Now, they didn't actually do anything either. He attacked Paula Jones.
Well, there's the Paula Jones
hush money.
There's also his stock.
Jennifer Flowers. Jennifer Flowers was Trump's actual mistress prior to being in the White House. Paula Jones was an aide to him while he was Democrat governor of Arkansas, and he tried to assault her in the office, along with Juanita Broderick, who need him in the nutsack. We are aware of, well, of course, the Lewinsky situation. The settlement for Paula Jones was $850,000. That was because she sued him civilly for the attack.
Yeah, but you're leaving out the stock deal that he and Hillary had, Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Oh, I'm
on
just
their stock. There was a settlement in that as well.
Oh, but I'm only talking about
women.
What would be considered sexual impropriety.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, if Trump did something with somebody in 2008 and then paid his lawyer for legal fees, and then the lawyer took the money to do whatever he was doing, and then the lawyer subsequently went in jail because he worked out a deal with the person's other lawyer, who also went to jail. I'm sorry, but at some point there's a credibility issue with the district attorney.
Just go and get them the same way they get everyone else.
What, tax evasion?
Taxes. They got him on the real estate deal in upstate New York.
No, that won't go through.
Oh, we're lying on the bank documents on the other side and taking the.
Won't go through. There's too many people connected to that in New York State. That's not going to go through. Yeah, which is why they haven't talked about it.
He's not, you're talking about a business consortium with 1,000 people working on a deal, not just one guy going, hey, I like this huge piece of property, I want to buy it. He's not working those deals himself. If somebody in the hierarchy of the administration tries to cut something, I'm sure that more than one bribe was probably paid to some inspector at some point over something that you can't trace all the way back to him when it was some underling trying to save his own job. You can't tie that back to him. It's like the captain of the ship should know every single nut and bolt that's in his ship, but he doesn't know every thought and dream in his crew's head. The captain can't know all of that. So a lot of that stuff is never going to go anywhere anyway.
Yeah, but Agent Black is right. And I think everyone in America recognizes none of this, no matter what they're pointing to right now, all of these issues, one, are pre-existing. We've already had these discussions since 2020, since 2019, or if not 2016. These are all old issues that have already been hashed through the public. People already have their opinions on it. And at this point, when everyone is being reminded of this, the one thing I keep hearing is this is an obvious desperation attempt to try and stop Trump. Even in the UK, Agent Black is talking about it. This is an obvious attempt to stop him because none of this is new. All of this has been dealt with already. All of this is old news because they have nothing. And it makes them look bad because it shows they're being desperate. They've got nothing actually to hold them to. Well, there are issues with Trump, not to say there aren't, but none of them are the ones they're pointing at.
It also kind of is coincidental that this whole New York district attorney bullshit is going on the same week that Hunter Biden is trying to sue the laptop repairman for privacy violations on a laptop that he originally claimed didn't exist, and if it didn't belong to him, and if it did belong to him, all the images in it were doctored, and if the images were doctored, it was the Chinese who were working with the Russians to help Trump.
Yeah, and at the same time, this is also the week, or right after the week, that we found out that there are actual financial documents linking payments to Hunter and others from China. It's not even a question. It's not a if or a maybe. They've been published. The documents are out there. It's public, confirmed in the public by credible news agencies. They're on a witch hunt because they've got nothing. They're trying to burn him and change the story, distract the public and deflect, because if anyone pays attention to the news on Biden, on this and many, many, many other issues, he looks bad.
Well, he looks bad because he looks bad.
I was quite fond of the congressional testimony by ATF when I forget who it was from ATF was testifying there, and they directly asked him about the case of the lying on the 5504 form for Hunter, and he did not have any knowledge of a case. What are we talking about? He has no knowledge of any case or any wrongdoing. I mean, it was only published in Hunter Biden's fucking book that he was high and buying guns. So where's that case?
Doesn't exist, and Merrick Garland is too busy at the moment trying to go after moms and dads. There was just today there was a conversation at a congressional hearing and I can pull it up if you want, where there has not been any cases that have actually moved forward where the FBI, who created a hotline so that parents could be, so that they could be turned into the FBI for investigation for being involved in their kids' PTA meetings. Yeah, not one of those cases resulted in a single charge at all. But mind you, Antifa has never been investigated ever. Trump, what is it? Hunter Biden, the FBI investigated. They have 400 charges that they have investigated and can be applied to Hunter Biden. 400. This was true 6 months ago. We knew this existed. It's been sitting in front of Merrick Garland for the last 9 months before that. And nothing's happening.
Well, Merrick is more concerned with bringing the charges to what the estimated 1,000 additional people they seek to arrest for January 6th. But there's not a single charge being brought against a single member of Antifa for all the riots that they caused during the Summer of Love.
Yeah. And
The
they're
billions of dollars in property damage, the dozens of people that were murdered in the street. Not a single arrest. Well, because Antifa is just an idea.
Yeah, an idea that's responsible for burning $2 million in Minneapolis, $2 billion in Minneapolis, not counting the autonomous zones, which are insurrectionists in Portland, not counting the autonomous zones in Seattle that wound up killing a 14-year-old, the autonomous zone in Atlanta that wound up killing an 8-year-old, not counting the damage across this country in 11 of the top 22 cities around the country. Yeah. But Antifa, completely theoretical. They didn't actually have a member of, in Portland, a member of Antifa, self-recognized, absolutely declares himself Antifa, walked up to a man on video and shot him dead in Portland after a Trump rally, but they don't exist. They just have members that go around assassinating American citizens. Yeah.
Well, if for a group that doesn't exist, why is Kamala Harris raising bail money for them?
Well, she'll say it was because of BLM, and she wasn't looking at a specific organization. She was just looking at individuals, except most of those people reoffended and caused even more crimes.
Why was she raising money for BLM when BLM itself has already been showed to have been misappropriating hundreds of millions of dollars? I think 45 million of which came from that bank that just collapsed in California last week.
At least 5 million of it, yes, that I'm aware of. I saw a report of 5 million.
45. Okay. I saw a report 45 million or more.
Yeah,
BLM from that bank. So for all you people out there in Silicon Valley that lost your money with that bank, congratulations. Now you know where it went. Go knock on Kamala's door and ask her for a reimbursement.
Yeah, but these are all connected issues and the same root problem. And we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. We're talking about the progressive mantra, the message. As a couple of people, I don't know if you ever heard of the Critical Drinker, who's a entertainment reviewer, but I love the way he says the message. But that's what this is all part of. And it's infecting so many other aspects. The Democrats have been taken over by a splinter group, progressives. We're talking about the elected Democrats. They are controlled by what winds up being about 7% of their party, the progressive movement. It's only 7% of Democrats, which means it's even smaller portion of the entire population of America. But they are incredibly loud. That's Hakeem Jeffries. That's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's Cori Bush, Anna Presley. They have really, really big mouths, but they have nothing of substance behind them. And their story always changes to whatever issue that they use race, they use sexism as their shields to protect them against everything they can come up with. And I do see your comment, Jan. I'll talk about Syria. I saw what was happening. I've been talking about this for a while, but we'll bring that up in a minute.
Oh,
But
yeah.
so that's why we're seeing this whole thing. It's really upsetting to me because there are so few people who are they pay attention to the headlines, but not the details. And even if you go into the articles, you got to go below the fold, which means you got to scroll down. And somewhere, almost every single time, it's going to be in the last 10% of the article, any of the paragraphs that are actually important to the issue at hand. And most people don't read to that. It's really sad.
There's a lot of sadness in the world.
Yeah. And part of that's, well, let's bring it up. Since Jan brought it up in the comment, do you see her comment about Syria? And
Yeah,
Agent
looks like
Black
we
is
got some
mentioned.
live stuff going on over there right now.
It's going on live? Okay. What?
This is going on like right now.
Okay. I was going to do a video on it earlier today. Basically, just to sum this up, to bring it up, everyone who may be watching up to date. On Wednesday, late Wednesday, Iran attacked the United States, or rather, I should say, Iran-backed terrorists, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which are completely controlled and funded by Iran, went in Syria and attacked Americans at a base. This is the 78th time that they have attacked Americans. So it wound up killing one civilian and wounding 5 members of the military. This is out of the 2,500 members of the military that are in Syria, which news media says it's 900. But on day one, again, January 21st of 2021, Joe Biden doubled the number of Americans in Syria and raised it up to 2,500. I've yet to see a single report that says he reduced that number. So there's 2,500 Americans there. So that was the kill. So then he told Lloyd Austin, supposedly, that you can't attack Americans with no reason. So we then precision bombed the IRGC, the Iranian terrorists in Syria. We bombed them. And that was supposed to be proportional and end it. That was it. They bombed us, we bombed them, it's over. Except it's not over, because then they decided, the terrorists, to go back and attack again, wounding another 5 Americans and another civilian, if I'm reading the reports correctly. So there's a total of 10 soldiers, 2 civilians. At least one of the civilians died, 1 got injured, and 10 of our troops have been wounded in Syria, which means the whole thing is escalating because Iran, Russia, and China back Syria, and we don't. We back rebels in that area, a group called the PKK, which is a group of terrorists, according to Turkey. Our ally Turkey hates that we are involved here because we're backing a group just like we backed Osama bin Laden and Al Qaeda in the very beginning.
That was the Mujahideen.
Yes, before they changed their name. So we backed them against the Soviets in Afghanistan, and then they turned around and attacked us after they got rid of the Soviets. Well, we're doing the same thing with a group called the PKK, where Turkey is like, no, they're absolute terrorists, and we're backing them because we don't like Syria, which is backed by Iran, China, and Russia. I know it gets a little complicated, folks, but this is I'm trying to condense about 11 years of active warfare into just a few minutes for you. So I'm trying to hit the highlights here. I've been covering this for years. So again, they attacked us again. And it sounds like if there's something live going on, that there are rockets being fired as well as drones, then what we're looking at is Syria is now back in play, which is not a surprise considering Iraq has gotten more violent. Syria is getting more violent. We have problems with the Chinese Strait in the Southeast Asian Sea that's going on right now. We have continuing problems with Ukraine, with Russia. The world is getting crazy because I've said this many times. I had a speech recently about it. We have no leadership. We have no plan. And we knew this. I actually covered, believe it or not, I actually did a video a month ago in February. It was actually on Valentine's Day, February 14th, where I was talking about Syria, and the Syrian forces were all saying, well, Joe Biden has no plan. There's no focus. We have no end game there. So nobody knows what he's doing. And that's why we've been attacked 78 times since 2021. Well, then it was 77, and now it's 78, maybe 79. It's because he has no plan. Same reason why North Korea is firing hypersonic missiles like it's candy, because we have no plan and no one's afraid of it. No one's afraid of Biden. No one, and God help us, Harris is the worst thing possible. And now she's going to Africa. And I found out why she's going to Africa. It's not what you think. But go on. I just ran through that, but that sums it up.
Well, also, let's not also forget what happened with the Chinese.
In what
Situation
respect?
with the Chinese.
There's a lot.
Well, the Chinese just brokered a deal between the Sunni and the Shia, bringing a peace accord between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Yep.
To help Iran. They've been fighting with each other for 1,000 years, two sects of Islam, separated by two countries. They've been at war with each other since the dawn of their religious, offspring. And China goes in and brokers a deal with them.
You know why?
Why is China brokering deals? Well, part of the reasons why China is brokering deals, if you look at the countries that they're brokering deals between, they're oil-rich countries.
That's not the reason why.
No, there's a reason. Because those oil-rich countries use the American dollar.
There's another reason. There's another reason that's different.
They want the yen to take over the place of the American dollar when it comes to brokering oil deals.
No, that's absolutely true. But there's another
wanting
reason.
that for decades, yeah.
But there's another reason. It's because when we ran away from Afghanistan, we lost the respect of the entire Middle East. We then followed that up by throwing Saudi Arabia under a bus. Biden literally directly threw them under a bus, which is why we didn't get the oil deal we wanted and why they increased the price of oil. Is because they were pissed at Biden because he insulted Saudi Arabia after running away from Afghanistan. And in the Middle Eastern culture, that's a sign of weakness. No one respects that. And so that opened up the door for China to come in and say, there's a vacuum. No one's in charge. China comes in and says, well, we're tough. We're badasses.
Right.
Listen to us. And that's what happened.
That's the motivation for Syria. China exploits the motivation because they have their own motivation. And that's to undermine the U.S. dollar as the national currency, as the global currency, and replace it with the yen, so they could eventually undermine the dollar enough, devalue it enough, where the yen is the predominant monetary source in the country, and that'll allow them to come in here and start taking full possession of all the stuff that they're underwriting here in the United States by buying up all our farmland and everything else. They replace the dollar as the world currency. It's over for America, and the only reason that's going to happen is we have such lackluster leadership in Washington, D.C., from a president who's financially obligated to the Chinese. I don't know what the translation of Biden is in Chinese.
Look up the word for dog. And dogs aren't well loved in China.
Rome is falling, gentlemen. We're not going to win this one. History.
We can, but we can't do it the way you can't do it without a plan. And I have asked, I don't know how many Democrats, and I'm talking about elected officials, tell me in one sentence, tell me at all, what's the Biden international policy? Because I don't know what it is. I've been following politics 2 decades, literally reporting on it. I can't tell you what the Biden international policy is. I can tell you the failures. I can tell you the hodgepodge moves we've been doing in various countries. I can't tell you what the policy is, what the overriding theme is.
Yeah, correct. There's no policy.
And that's the
whatsoever.
problem. And that's the
And-
problem. You can't want to maintain America as a powerhouse. You can't say we're a leader of the world. And I can show you example after example. The French are stopping Iran's boats, their freighters, and pulling off all of their illegal weapons going to the Yemen rebels. Not Americans. The French did that. We've got the British involved. We've got the Russians involved. We've got connections between China and Iran and Russia and North Korea. We've got our allies in Japan and South Korea begging us to do something. We've got today that the Philippines is screaming that they're terrified that the Chinese are impeding on their land and threatening them. We've got Australia saying, build us nuclear submarines as soon as possible. The world is begging that America stand up and be the leader that you are, because everyone is going haywire. And Biden's like, how do I win that next election?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, half of those countries that just called out for help can go sit on it. Especially Australia. You deprive
You got something against emus or something?
No, when you deprive all of your citizenry the right to defend themselves, erroneously confiscate all their firearms and destroy them, and then mandate that they're not allowed to even leave their house or go to work if they're not taking a vaccine, and that they're initiating all this hate speech legislation where if you even speak badly against the vaccine, you're going to go to jail over it. Australia can go scratch.
But they're not a free nation. They never were.
Right. So if they want their own submarines, you know what? Build your own submarines.
They
Build
can't.
your own shit. How about that? Build your own shit.
Yeah, but they can't. And we need them to have the submarines because of China. They're one of our front lines. Huh?
What do we need them to have the submarines for?
Because they're a front line on and an ally to all of Southeast Asia. Without them, we lose control of Southeast Asia because the Philippines won't give it to us, even though we don't have a base and they're asking us to put one in because Japan is building its own military. So is South Korea.
Do we have
someone we can trust?
Do we have any American bases in Australia?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Man our American bases with our American troops, with our American submarines, with American sailors. Leave the goddamn Australians on their stupid friggin' island. Let them stand there looking at Ayers Rock and playing with kangaroo ass for all I care. They're unreliable. If they don't respect the sovereignty and of their own citizens, respect them as free, independent, individual
They're
people.
not free, but
They should be.
But no, that's you're looking at the rest of the world by the standards of America, which is great, except it doesn't apply. They don't have they've never had those freedoms, and they don't want, or apparently they don't want them because that's their constitution.
What do we need other than a base?
We need them to have their own submarines because we don't have enough submarines because our military is shrinking.
Why would we build our own submarines?
Because we don't have the people to man them.
And then give them to Australians. Their friggin' toilets flush the wrong way. Okay?
Look,
we build our own submarines, put our own people in them,
we don't have the people
over there, and leave the friggin' Australians alone.
Because we don't have the people. Our military is shrinking. Because of the Biden approach of it's all warm and fuzzy and two moms, there aren't enough people with two moms to fill the spaces. Our military is shrinking.
All right, so let's build a couple of nuclear submarines, send them over to the Australians, so you can get a bunch of them over there, trade a submarine to China for a box of Foster's beer. No more of our nuclear shit to other nations. No more of that shit. No more of it. No, we can't.
If we don't do it, France is going to do it. Actually, France was going to do the deal. We screwed France to get the deal, which is worth about $30 billion over 10 years. We literally screwed France. Who's pissed at us right now because of it.
What does $30 billion matter to us? That's a fly on the windshield.
It's money
of waste that American government gives to other nations so they can raise awareness for things that need raising awareness of. We don't. Who cares? $30 billion ain't going to do us shit. You know what's going to probably happen with $30 billion? The fact that we're giving away technology secrets and our equipment to other nations that is going to wind up in other people's hands. It's bad enough the president of this country has already turned the Taliban into the 4th largest air force in the world. We're going to start sending nuclear submarines over to the Australians. Australia, build your own shit. Build your own shit. You can't produce your own shit? Buy it. We're not giving you nothing.
They're buying it from us. They're buying it for $30 billion.
At friends and family prices. You know, slap some for sale signs on some old diesels and send them over there.
They already have them over there.
Equip them with some subs, some of them speakers that you can put on the water and make it sound like the submarine from Red October. Let the Chinese deal with that shit. Frig these people. Give them more submarines.
We got to do
Frank
something
had a
about
bad
that.
week.
Huh?
Frank had a bad week, and he's letting it out tonight.
Oh yeah, it's all coming out tonight.
Just everybody wants something from America. America arms every fucking nation that wants something. But every one of these nations that we arm don't allow their friggin' citizens to arm themselves. And then we got to hear the people in this country talk about how bad the Second Amendment is, but they all fly the goddamn Ukrainian flag in their Twitter handles and have no qualms about us sending full automatic firearms to the citizenry there because they can't draw the line and understand why having an armed populace protects your nation against invasion. They got no problem arming the rest of the world, and they don't have no problem with other people killing everybody. They just don't want Americans to have any of this stuff because the group that they say is systemic racist, needs to be defunded, can't be trusted. They're white supremacist, Nazis, this, that, and everything else, meaning the police, law enforcement, and everything else. Has got all of those things on them, but they're the only ones who should be able to have the guns.
You're talking about
the mindset of these people. Give the rest of the world the shit. Where are all of these people saying?
There's a big difference between Twitter, the average American, and absolutely the majority of the rest of the world. We're talking about very different groups with different objectives, and I understand your anger. I do, but I also understand what the rest of the world is looking for, and they are begging us. We right now, especially Southeast Asia, they are begging us because they know they are the next region to go to war. They know it's going to happen somewhere between the next 3 to 5 years. They know it. They are militarizing over it, and they are begging us to step in and do something.
All right, but here's the problem. All the problems in the world existed before America. Just the different time zone, different technologies, different people. Same friggin' problems. America, founded in 1776, we develop a constitution. We become an economic superpower, a world superpower. We are the defender of rights throughout the world. Yes. America is a nation like no other, whose citizenry is granted from God with rights that no other citizens' governments even recognize. And we prosper. We prosper from good and bad and in between. Whatever happened, it's the United States is the only reason why this world is not a ball of ash floating in the atmosphere somewhere in space, because America has stopped so much bad thing from happening. But every one of these countries that comes knocking on our door all of the time, America, please help us. America, please help us. America, you're the stability. You're the shining light. You're this, you're that, and everything. Every one of these countries flies with their moral code, their ethical code, how they treat their people. They fly in direct opposition to every single thing that made America what America is. And we are the ones who have to keep picking up the pieces around the world. America doesn't have to be the only shining light. Every other country in this world can be America. Every other country in the world can adopt our constitution, can guarantee the rights of their citizenry, can become an economic superpower. Every country has the ability to do that because the blueprint is already there. Do what America did. And if you're not going to do what America did and you're going to stand there and castigate us, complain about us, and point to us like we are the ill, we're the infection, we're the thing that's everything wrong with the world today and why everything is upside down, and then still expects to come and wipe everybody's ass and police the world and keep the world peace. Do it yourself. Because before America, these problems happened. America was here. We stopped a lot of these problems. And if these countries want an America to lead the way, then become America. Give your people the rights Americans have. Operate your government in a proper democratic elected republic. Become a superpower of your own. And then you can take the shoes and you can stand where we stand and you could draw the line in the sand and you could be America for a day and then see what it's like to have the rest of the world complain and criticize you for the freedoms that you have been criticizing us for. America has got to stop. You say, listen, if you want to learn your fucking lesson, we can't, we have been giving the fish. We have not taught anyone how to fish. The world needs to learn how to fish. The world needs to learn how to fish. And when we talk about how all the time, Americans haven't suffered enough pain to really realize how good we have it. And then every day is another day that Joe Biden and his ilk puts more weight, more burden on the American people, that eventually that pain is going to register and people are going to wake up and there will be a new revitalization of the American spirit. Maybe the same thing needs to happen in the world, where a world without America will finally understand what America is, and they'll either appreciate what America is and thank us for it, or they will fill the role that America has vacated. And since I doubt they'll be able to do that, maybe, just maybe, they'll start granting their citizens freedom. Maybe, just maybe, they'll allow their people to speak freely, practice their religion freely, defend their family, defend their lives, defend their country.
That's not going to
happen. Until that happens, the rest of the world can go scratch their own ass, and I don't think we should be giving anything to anybody.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it's not going to happen. And I do agree. I get what you're saying, Frank. I do. But I also look at it from the politics, which is different. But Rick, Pete, you've been quiet. Come on, kick in there.
There's a reason I've been quiet.
I know.
Because everything that Frank's saying there, it sounds like that's what China wants to do.
Well, that's what China
is problem. Right.
Yeah.
That's why they're in Africa. That's where they're brokering these deals. The one thing that, China, the obvious thing they don't have is the people. They're a communist country. They're not as well off with fuel and food, and as we are very fortunate to be where we are in the world. All of the resources that we need are here. We don't have to import anything. We do to make nice with the world. We don't have to import a damn thing.
True.
So that's what they're lacking.
For our electric freaking cars.
No, we got that too.
We can do
there's not enough. There's not enough lithium in the world to do what Biden wants to do. And
is there enough child labor here in America to extract the lithium?
Got to get it out of Africa. And those kids,
I think we should use leftists.
No, that would be interesting. But
they want the cause. They want the batteries. Let them go earn it.
Well, then we got to ship them over to Africa. But China's already got that locked up. In fact, that's why Kamala Harris. This is exciting news. Kamala Harris will be the fifth official of the United States. She's going over to Ghana, Tanzania, and Zambia.
Gonorrhea? What's that?
Ghana. No, the country is called Ghana. Okay. And she's going to Ghana, Zambia, and Tanzania to try and rework America's position with them, which we lost over a decade ago to Russia. Russia controls all the precious metals. Why is she going to those countries? Well, besides the geographic importance of each of those nations, they also happen to have gold and they happen to have some other precious metals that we need. They have them and they're making all their deals with China. And they've already made the deals with China and they already have debt with China and not the United States because Obama didn't care about Africa and he threw them under a bus. And as soon as he threw them under a bus, in came China saying, we'll pick up the slack. And now we are behind the 8 ball and we need them. We suddenly realized we need all the resources, the heavy metals, the precious metals out of Africa that we don't have enough of in America to be able to go green. And we're behind the 8 ball. The problem I have is they're sending Kamala Harris, someone that even Biden doesn't have trust in, that he doesn't have any faith in. There's recent reports on that. She's failed at everything she's touched. And every nation she has gone to speak to, every nation she has spoken at, has wound up with worse relations with the United States than before she actually showed up. I would expect that she's going to take the entire continent of Africa and turn it communist just because she showed up. She is that bad at her job.
Well, maybe that's the point.
Oh God,
Maybe
help
that
us.
is
I
the
hope
point
not.
of her going. If they know that's what she's going to wind up accomplishing because she's failed. Listen, sometimes when people fail, it's not because they're failing, they're succeeding at what the mission was.
That would be very dark.
We tried,
Do,
but
do I
know, they
have
wouldn't-
an ounce of faith in this government? No, I don't have an ounce of faith in this government. A boxer takes a dive in the ring. He loses the fight, but his bank account gets rich. All right, mission accomplished. If you wanted to screw up a deal, you send over somebody who has no weight of making a deal, who doesn't carry a weight of office, doesn't carry authority. If you want to screw up a deal, you send the person who's going to screw it up. And if they just want to finish what Obama did by hanging Africa out to dry, what better slap in the face than to send Kamala over there, to slap the other cheek?
Well, yeah, she can.
Hey, listen, what's going to happen? The whole continent is going to fall to who? To China?
Yeah.
Who's in bed with Joe? China? Let's just find out if the big guy gets his 10%.
That's terrifying. That's a terrifying aspect to think that they're so in love
An
with
American
money.
president who's what is Joe Biden now? 133, 134. How old is this guy?
80.
All right. Is it really that terrifying to think that a guy who's 80 years old, who's well past the average expected life expectancy of a white male in the United States, which I think is what, 76,
About
76, 77?
yeah,
Okay.
76.
He's already beyond. He's above. He's above. He's living in the lap of luxury with every single need covered in the America's house, eating America's food, getting driven around by America's drivers, protected by America's police. This man don't have a worry in the world. The only thing he's worried about is his 10%. Because no matter what happens, there's enough money in them Biden coffers right now that he could be sitting pretty no matter what country oil decide to go to after good old Sleepy Joe decides to take his final nap. So what does Joe care? What does Joe care? Joe don't care. Joe cares about the money.
I would like to believe, and I have great difficulty believing, but I would like to believe that anyone who aspires to be the president of the United States is someone who has at least some aspect of America as their ultimate goal, not their own self-preservation or reward.
How many lies has this man been caught in since 1972, since he entered public life? The man has been in public life longer than I have been walking this planet. Literally.
Really?
I was born in 72.
Oh God, I forgot I'm older than you.
Yeah, only by 2 years. Only by 2 years, not that much.
Not that
But
many, but you know.
The guy has been in public life longer than I've been alive. He has been caught lying at every single level of office that he has ever had. He has never held a job.
No.
And his only ambition in life was to pad. That's all it was. And if you want more, you got to get a higher office. And to get a higher office, you got to pander, you got to lie, you got to cheat, got to steal, got to do whatever you got to do. You know how pissed off that he must have been to say to himself, I had to wait until 2008 to become vice president, and here comes Trump, never holding public office in his life, bats a home run, first time in the batter box. It must have pissed him off to no end that a first timer with no political experience became president, while it took him 42 years to ride Obama's coattails.
It's okay. We got Afro Man.
Off. That in and of itself would be enough motivation for him to sell this country out every which way till Sunday and only worry about sniffing his kids, showering with his daughter, and making sure that that Hunter has enough Parmesan to smoke.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues there.
Yeah, and I don't put past him 1 second at all. 1 second that anything that motivates him would be to empower China.
I don't have a lot of faith. Obviously, I don't have faith, and I've pointed out many of the issues that you pointed out about Biden. So I have a lot of problems. But wait a minute, Pete. You mentioned something. What's Afro Man?
Jan thinks that I'm much older than I am.
I thought you were older than that. I thought you were older than me.
Well, you would think that how could somebody who is only 50 be so grizzled, suspicious, and pissed off at the whole world all the time? How do you bundle all of that shit up? Listen, I've been this way since I was 11.
I get it.
I can vouch for that.
He knows.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a teenager, I said, these damn teenagers.
I imagine. But wait a minute, Pete, what's Afro Man? I'm thinking of an anime.
No. Do you remember Afro Man? The song back, I don't know, it's back in the 90s. I wasn't going to go to work, but then I got high.
Oh, that.
Yeah, that song. Remember Afro Man? He's running for president. He's running for president.
Wait a minute, the guy who sang the song about getting high
is running for. I mean, obviously, it's a joke.
It
came up in the news this week.
I didn't even.
Frank was saying about who we're gonna have, and I was like, well, we did Afro Man because he's running.
You know what? Listen, if it was a choice between Biden and Afro Man, let me sit down and interview Afro Man for a couple of minutes and talk to the guy, because I'm almost certain that Vermin Supreme is eminently more qualified than Joe Biden would be.
I've actually interviewed Vernon Supreme.
I know you have.
He is a smart man.
Yeah, and you know who else is a smart guy? The black dude with the white hair with the big handlebar mustache who talks about the rent being too damn high.
Rent too damn high. I've actually never heard him speak, separate of the one or two times he's been highlighted.
I've heard him speak. Very impressive. He seems to have a good grasp on things from his point of view.
Right.
Which is out there.
Okay. Well, I can say Vernon Supreme.
From his point of view, he's got it locked in.
Well, I can say Vernon Supreme. When you actually speak with him, most people have never actually heard Vernon Supreme take a serious question. And I was happy enough. I've actually got video of actually asking him a serious question and getting a serious answer back. And then he threw in some fun afterwards because he wouldn't just let it be serious. He then threw in some pixie dust and some unicorns in there. But man's actually very, very smart. It's amazing how we let the media color so much of what we think about some of these politicians? Because you, Frank, I know you've met, I can't say for you, Pete, but I know for a fact, Frank, you've met some members of Congress. I've met a bunch of members of Congress, besides speaking to people who've run for Congress, who've run for vice president of the United States, credible individuals. We're talking about credible people. And the image that the public has versus actually talking to these people, some of them are absolute idiots. Some of them are really intelligent. And it's usually the exact opposite of whatever's going out in the nightly news. Almost every time the nightly news is saying, well, this person's a genius. It's like, I've actually talked to that moron. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. And then they say, well, this person's an evil devil and they don't know what they're talking about. I'm like, I've had the conversations with them, many, and they actually have a better grasp of this than the reporter talking about it.
Well, you got to remember, if the person that they're interviewing is going to fit the political profile that's expedient to the network covering them, of course they're going to all come across as, the Albert Einstein of politics. And if you vary at all from the accepted doctrine, you're going to be painted as stupid, non-intellectual, who has no grasp of anything, a white supremacist, KKK, whatever. So you're gonna have people that. Why do you think so many people that are qualified just don't want to be bothered?
Because it's a pain in the ass to run.
Life. It's not worth it for them. Now look, I'm not qualified to hold office, other than the fact that I'm a passionate American. That's the only thing that would qualify me for being office. I'm not a felon. I've never been arrested. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I'm passionate about freedom. That's my qualification.
That's all you should need.
That's all
what it's supposed to be.
That's all I should need to be able to represent people that think like me, that feel like me, and even represent people who don't think and feel like I do, because I could still understand their point of view.
Mm-hmm.
They might disagree with me politically, but I'll be able to at least say, okay, if I was representing you, then my position is supposed to be to represent your views, not represent my own views to an extent, but to represent the views of the constituency. Other than that, these politicians only represent themselves. 95% of holding office is trying to get reelected.
Sadly, that's
so.
True.
How do you have people serve in government that don't really have any connection to their constituents other than the time they need them to vote for them again?
Let me show you something. And this is the problem that people aren't realizing. If you can pull this up for people.
Boom.
So there's a reason. Now, there's a reason. We were talking about Syria. We were talking about the problem there and about what people think about politicians. This is why. So as you can see, this is from USA Today. Credible news source, left-leaning, not making anything up. People can see it for yourself. Now, it took two reporters, Kim, I can't pronounce that last name, and Joey Garrison, put this together. The two of them, in going through this, said that, where is it? Biden's, and here's the part that I want to emphasize. Biden's first military action as president in late February 2021 was to order airstrikes against Iranian-backed militias in Syria in response to attacks on the U.S. and coalition military in Iraq. Two reporters from USA Today had to work on this. This is January 22nd of 2022. Do you see? No, you're not seeing that screen. Okay. Okay. So this is from January 22nd of 2020, January 22nd of 2021. This is me pointing out the international news story. January 22nd, 2021, U.S. military convoy enters northeast Syria. That's the report. They can't even find something that was international news that was reported around the world that Biden, in that story, as I detailed in this video, had doubled the American presence in Syria. And the first thing, and they're telling everyone, the first thing he ever did was, we just got attacked. No reason. Don't know how that could have happened. Oh my God. This is stupid. And it took two of them, two reporters, couldn't figure out something that I reported on at the time that was international news. Now, here's the thing about that pisses me off about it. This is why everyone gets it wrong, the American people. We're looking at these news media, we're looking at these politicians like, one, they're a genius, or two, that they know things that we don't know. No, it's because the news media has completely failed in its job, and Americans aren't picking up the slack and calling them out. I am. USA Today, you need better reporters. Fire those guys, get someone else, because this was obvious news. I covered it, so that's why when I read it, I was like, I know this story. I covered this story. You're wrong. You're lying to the American people, which means everything after that in the reporting is suspect. It means everything else they're trying to tell us about what's happening in Syria right now is suspect. It means we're not getting the true story, not from the American media, definitely not from USA Today. It means that that if we're only looking at them trying to give us the news and people are going off the headline, we're going to make the wrong decision. That's not how a democracy, even a representative democracy, that isn't the way we run our government. That's how we get led. And that's pissing me off. You know what I mean?
Well, it's the media. It's the media.
Did you know that? And you can see why I'm pissed off when I'm seeing that. And I just showed it to you. And anyone can look this up. This isn't like, oh, I got a link to if you go to my video on the 22nd of 2021, you'll see the link to the international news story. There's several actually in that video, several stories covering this internationally. And USA Today couldn't figure it out. What the hell? No wonder we're screwing up around the world. There's no accountability.
Well, also take into consideration that they're playing to the base of the people that read their magazine. And the people that read their magazine are probably not really politically astute or caring about world events. The only thing they want to do is, care about who to point their finger at when their agenda doesn't get passed. And if that's something that really doesn't hit on their radar, don't expect USA Today or any other media outlet to put resources into getting something right if their readers don't give a shit about it. Because they know nobody's going to read it anyway. Their readership isn't going to read it. The people that follow them aren't going to read it. The only people who are going to read it are people like you who look at it at an organization like that and say, look at what poor job doing reporting these people do. And your voice doesn't matter to them.
But it should
because
matter
your
that,
voice doesn't toe their line.
But it should matter to everyone, because you're messing up America, and when you're messing up U.S. international policy, it's hurting people by getting the news wrong. It sets it up. Basically, when I see that from USA Today, this is the reason why we're having so many problems around the world. When they're screwing up something that basic, they're telling the elected officials, I've got your back. We're going to cover for you. We don't care what actually happens. We're going to make you look good. And if you're telling that to elected officials of in any country in the world, they're going to abuse that. And that's why we see so much abuse in the Biden White House right now. It's because he keeps getting stories like this where they keep changing the past to make him look better, to try and absolve him of any consequences of his actions so that he looks good and Democrats get votes. And it's screwing us as we go forward, because they go, well, it doesn't matter what we do. They're going to cover for us. And that's ultimately the big problem of that is, we're just going to cover for him. We'll just make it look good. No one's going to check us. I did. Everyone else should too. I shouldn't be the only one pointing out USA Today. Their reporters are hacks, don't know what they're doing. And I'm not going to retract that to USA Today. If you ever want to come and try and sue me, please do. I got the evidence. I just showed it live. Your reporters are hacks.
You
Do
want
your
some?
damn
Go
job.
get some. You're gonna get bit by the dragon.
You know, I'm
You're
not
gonna blow some
afraid.
fire at your ass.
I don't pull up things. I don't talk about things that I don't know about, and especially I don't quote things that I know. It's like, come on, this is the stuff that hurts us, and it's why we have so much rampant abuse.
Well, again, if the ends justify the means, what they don't care because they're getting it's their agenda that they're ultimately trying to pass. They don't care how they get there. Remember when I keep going back to that quote from Harry Reid when he came out on said on the House floor, it's a well-known fact that Mitt Romney doesn't pay his taxes. And millions of people, it went out everywhere. It was repeated everywhere. And people, what was the first thing that they said about Mitt Romney? Wasn't that he was an unreliable conservative or that he was wishy-washy or that he was this and he was that. You don't pay his taxes. Why do you say that? Harry Reid said so. And when Mitt Romney proved it to be a lie, and then after the election, they asked Harry Reid, you said that it was a well-known fact that Mitt Romney doesn't pay his taxes. That's been proven that you lied. And he said, well, it worked, didn't it?
Yeah.
It worked, didn't it? That's all you need to know, Mike. That's it. It worked.
It's not the fact, it's the accusation that matters.
Yeah, I know they've been doing the whole accusation equals guilt thing, and maybe I have a higher standard. I've been doing this too damn long, and I still have my standards with me.
Well, you see, that's your problem right there. You see, that's your problem right there. Is you got to lower your standards. You got to sell your soul, lower your standards, and just be the dead fish that goes with the flow. That's what you got to do.
If I wanted to be rich, I would have done that a while ago.
I mean, well, shit. Well, damn, aren't you for sale? I mean, from what I understand, every one of us has got a price.
I'm poor, but they can't match my price.
I have a price, and it's in a currency they don't deal.
Exactly.
And that's the way I look at it. Is you can't. It's not that you can't afford to pay my price. You don't have the qualities necessary to pay my price. Because if you had the qualities necessary to pay my price, you would not be you.
True. But since we're talking about our apps, all of our disgust with the news media and the abuse of power that we're seeing in our nation, and we're pissing off, and we're more than likely completely pissing off the algorithm of Google, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, all of them. Let's really dive right in. I got something. Did you hear about this news story? Let's see if I can share it. There it is. Did you hear about this? This is in case, and again, I'm going from the independent, the left-leaning news media. So they can't say, oh, I'm frozen. Hang on. There it goes. Screen froze for no reason. So this is coming from the independent, left-leaning news media. So you can't say I'm picking only things from the right about the Denver school shooting. Did you hear about this?
I heard something about it, but I'm sure you will inform us.
Wednesday, there was a shooting in the school. A kid goes, he's got a questionable past. He's been in problems with guns before. He gets pat down.
The one day they got rid of all the security protocols for this student is the day he came into school with a gun.
Yeah. So the Denver school board lifted their ban on armed guards and police officers after the shooting. They had that ban in place for 2 years because they thought it would make kids safe. because they wanted to protect them, because they wanted to defund the police. And what do you know? A 17-year-old kid walked into the school, shot 2 of the members of the faculty. 2. He eventually shot himself. You know who else decided that they should have armed guards? Parkland, Florida, also came to the same decision after their school shooting. This is stupid. Look at this. They defunded the police. They removed the police and armed police officers from their schools because George Floyd, because of racism, because of institutional whatever, CRT, whatever their excuse is here. It's going to make it better for everyone. The police, it's bad. They're indoctrinating all those authoritarians. And as a result, it took 2 years to happen. The result is 2 teachers got shot and a kid committed suicide. This is why gun control doesn't work. This is why the left is evil, and that people who are against the Second Amendment, who are against protecting our schools with actual armed guards, with actual guns, are doing a disservice. They're committing acts of evil, because when you don't do it, you don't necessarily see it the same day, but eventually you get what happened in Denver. You took away the armed guards. You took away the protection for the kids because of politics. And then people get shot, they get hurt. And then you're going to turn around and tell me, but it's the gun is the bad guy. No, it's a 17-year-old who's a nut job who went into that school with a gun with the intent of harming someone, and he did. And your background checks aren't going to work because he's 17. There is no background check for a 17-year-old. He's not getting back checks. That's not helping anyone. Mr. Biden, with his executive order, we're going to have red flag laws, and we're going to have extended background checks. None of that works. And we're going to defund the police because the police are evil, because, racism. Don't you understand? You can't disagree, because if you disagree, you must be a racist or something. Oh my God, you're a fascist. You know what? The only fascism, the only evil that's going on is letting kids be in danger and letting people get hurt because you decided to play politics instead of thinking it through and not going with the emotional popular reaction and actually saying, well, this will actually protect kids. Let's keep the police in there. Let's keep the armed guards in the schools. Everyone wants to tell me that we don't need armed guards. Look at Denver. Tell me again how those armed guards wouldn't have stopped this. It's very upsetting. Gets me very angry.
Well, on the flip side, at least the gun control proponents now can utilize, because this kid shot himself, he is now going to be considered a victim of gun violence.
Yes.
So that's one more statistic that they could throw onto the pile of bullshit that they already pile up so very, very high.
Pete, what did you hear about this? Did you hear about that? Did you
know? I did hear about it, did know about it. The last thing I heard is they found him in the woods behind the school when he had, at the end of it all. At this point, I'd be repeating you guys. I mean, what am I here? I'm not here to repeat.
Well, no. But here's the thing.
Did
you hear the news media mention that the ban has been lifted and that they're putting back the police? Did you hear that part in the news?
I did not hear that part in the news, but once again, too little, too late. Why were they taken out in the first place? Because it was popular opinion, because guns are bad.
Well, listen, for all the gun control advocates out there, can we just at least admit that 2 of the measures that we took, and we're not going to get into the whole 9/11 bullshit right now, as far as who did what and who's responsible and who did it, because everybody's got a theory, conspiracy this, conspiracy that. But let's look at the one cold hard fact. After 9/11, 2 things took place. We hardened the cockpits so nobody else could get in,
Right.
and we put armed air marshals on the planes.
Yeah.
Why would those two steps be necessary? We can't harden the entirety of the plane so that the passengers are out of danger. So if something happens with inside the fuselage, the passengers are pretty much on their own. So that's why they put an armed air marshal in the
Mhm.
plane, and nobody knows who he is. So this way that the armed air marshal could use his firearm if necessary with specially designed frangible
Yeah.
bullets designed not to penetrate the fuselage of the plane, causing any decompression issues. But why did we harden the cockpit? So nobody could take control of the plane. Now, if we were to look at it as a school, the number of people that were killed in the September 11 attacks in its totality, and then look up the number of kids and adults and people in general who have been killed in mass shootings in the same period of time since 2001. Why have we not hardened every school the way we have hardened every airplane? Why have we not armed somebody in every school the way we have armed somebody on every airplane? Because it works. You know why we hardened the planes? Because if somebody gets control of a plane, we don't know where it's going to get put. We don't
Right.
know where it's going to land or crash. So there is a potential that that plane that gets taken out of the sky might come land on you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an unknown variable that politicians don't have control over, local districts don't have control over. Nobody has control over where the madman who has control of the plane is going to decide to put that plane. So everyone's life is at risk potentially when a plane gets hijacked because you don't know what the guy's going to do. You're talking about a 60, 70,000 pound fuel filled missile that can be deposited everywhere, anywhere within range that it will fly. Everyone becomes a potential victim when the plane gets hijacked. But the only people who become potential victims when a school gets hijacked are the people in the school. If a school gets hijacked in Oklahoma, a school in Nebraska, those kids aren't going to get shot because it's a different school. It's a non-related issue. Those are two different events, whereas a hijacking can go anywhere. So why don't they harden the schools? It's because they're not the ones in danger. They're looking at playing the odds
That's
and saying
terrible.
is we can I know, but they look at it and say the next school shooting is most likely going to occur someplace other than where I live. Other than where I live. My
That's
kids
Russian roulette. That's Russian roulette with kids' lives.
I know, but this is how they do it. Their kids, when they're writing the rules, writing the laws, writing the regulations, deciding on what's going to happen, their kids are in a private school that's hardened with doors that are locked with an armed security guard or armed personnel, whatever it is. Their kids are out of the danger zone. There's no plane flying over their kids. It's everybody else's kids that are vulnerable at that point. But as long as their ideological premise is intact, they'll insist that those schools remain disarmed, remain vulnerable, because when something happens, that's more evidence they can use to say guns are bad. If it bleeds, it leads, and it leads twice as much as it does normally if it's a blood of a child. And they don't give a shit. So, parents, what I tell people, parents, on your lunch break, leave your office, go to your kid's school on any random day, and see if you can walk into your school. Just pull on a door and see if you can walk into your school. If you can walk into your school and get any further than the front desk, your school has failed you and your school has failed your children. Because if you can walk in, then so can anybody else. If you can't get into your school is doing a good job because it means that they have locked the school. They're protecting the children to an extent. Now, I'm not going to tell you to break out a window and climb through and see if you get an armed response. That would be a little crazy.
Yeah.
But just go check your school and see if it's locked. Because the number one thing that I find with every one of these school shootings, the fucking doors are unlocked.
Yeah, or they got a rock holding the door open or something stupid like that.
Some way, somehow, there was an entry point vulnerable that somebody exploited, whether on purpose, by accident, or be through negligence, whatever the case was. Somebody is able to get into that school. That is the first step in the school shooting. Other than the actions of the shooter, the first step that needs to take place is for the shooter to get into the facility.
Yeah.
And if your facility is not hardened, and by hardening the school, I'm not talking about bulletproofing the shit out of everything. I'm just talking about let's start off with locking the
locks.
Yeah.
Let's start off with locking the doors.
Yeah.
Let's start off being able to lock the doors. Let's make sure that classrooms, the lock is on the inside of the door, and there's no way to access that lock from the outside of the door except authorized personnel having a specific key for a medical emergency or something to that effect. Let's just try locking the doors. Until you start locking the doors, don't complain when parents say, I want armed guards at the school. Because if you're not willing to do that step, you got no business sitting on that board. You got no business teaching at that school. You got no business casting that vote. Because if you're not going to do the most simple things to protect the kid's life, how could we ever expect you to make the hard decisions that are really necessary in providing that safety?
Yes, I agree with all of that. And there's a reason why they had armed guards and police officers in the school before 2020. Those reasons didn't stop existing just because an ex-con died because of complications of his criminal lifestyle. That didn't change what happened in their school or why they needed them. In Parkland, we learned very clearly in their annual report 1 year after the day that they need this, that most schools need this. Over and over again, every time that I've seen these school shootings, and they do the reports, and every time they come back with the same answer. Oh, we need to harden the school. We need armed officers, resource officers or police officers in the school, around the school, able to access the school as quickly as possible. And I know Dal had mentioned in the comments that now in Uvalde, they're saying that, well, we need to, the guns don't have the cops don't have the firearms they need. So everyone should not have guns, which is stupid, which is yet again stupid. Because if those officers in Uvalde were worth anything, regardless of what weapon that shooter had, they would have entered the room to protect the children, point blank, full stop. You go in and you protect the defenseless, the helpless, those in the greatest need as best as you can. And if you tell me 5 officers walked into the room and they tried to shoot him, that no one would have been able to stop him, I doubt that entirely. This isn't a James Bond movie. This isn't some action movie. This isn't some supervillain. This is a human being. They could have done something. And to say, well, I don't know, he's got a semi-automatic rifle. We've got semi-automatic pistols. Guess what? Okay, he's got 20 rounds. You've got 16. You can take him on.
There's 5 of you and 1 of him.
Exactly. 5 of you walk in the room with semi-automatic rifle pistols against his 1 semi-automatic rifle. That's 5 to 1. You can take him.
Hey,
it's not an excuse.
We had a kid from was it 60 yards away, take out an active shooter with his AR-15, and the guy took him out with a 9mm pistol from 60 yards away in the mall?
That was Indiana. Yes.
Indiana, right. You had one guy take his sidearm, not designed for real distance shooting, fire 8 rounds, hitting the guy 6 times, putting him down.
Yep.
One guy. One friggin' guy. A Dickin. Kid's name was Dickin.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Dickin, I believe his name was, if my brain's
Something
not
like that, if I remember it right.
malfunctioning today. One kid with no police training, a young guy, recent Second Amendment practitioner, recent firearms carrier, saw a threat, responded to the threat, put down the threat. One guy. No body armor, no shields, no semi-automatic rifle of his own, nothing. He put the threat down. How many cops showed up at Uvalde and didn't do their jobs?
Didn't follow any of the protocols. They didn't evaluate the situation.
Like the same situation in Parkland,
Mm-hmm.
standing outside, afraid to engage. This is the fight and flight mechanism that I talk about so often. The fight and flight mechanism. You get people that run to danger, and then you got people that run away from danger. The best way to harden our schools is to utilize men and women that run to danger. Who are the people that run towards danger? All retired military.
Yeah.
All people who have combat experience that are probably would do the work for free if asked. Would you be willing to protect the children? They would probably line up and put their name. They lined up. They they signed a blank check for their country. You know, to go to hellholes around the world and follow the directives of a government that they couldn't trust. You don't think for a second that these men and women would put it all on the line to protect the kids of this nation? Of course they would. We have a tremendous untapped resource in this country that we don't utilize because of stigmas and stereotypes. And then the people that we do put in the positions of protecting the children are ill-equipped, ill-trained, and ill-prepared to do so. And it's by design. It's by design. I pass every day. I drive around here in Charlotte when we watch the schools empty out. Every single school in Charlotte, there's a line of cars coming from both directions. Parents coming to pick their kids up. They get a school bus to school, but most kids seem to get picked up from school because Charlotte schools empty out a little later than other schools, so parents pick them up right around work time. Every single one of these schools, there's 1 or 2 police cars outside and an officer directing traffic. I don't like to be critical, but the officer that's directing traffic in 90% of these circumstances is exactly the officer that you would think would be directing traffic at 90% of these facilities. Not the officer that you're going to see get into a prolonged foot chase with a young
I got that
suspect, but somebody that is best served standing in one location,
especially if that location happens to be near Krispy Kreme,
or whichever. Yeah. But the fact is, it's still a police officer doing that job, and I don't want to besmirch them. I would hope to God that if something happened, that the officers that are out there would do the right thing. But this is also North Carolina. I think a lot of the parents are prepared to do the right thing.
Yeah, more often than not. Pete.
Yeah, this isn't Greenwich, Connecticut.
No.
This is Charlotte.
Yeah, I get you. Now, real quick to address Dal had mentioned that the Uvalde cops were using AR-15s, and many of them had body armor. So in other words, the odds were about even, if not even more, in favor of the police. Again, that's just sickening that they didn't follow protocol, that they didn't take the extra step to protect the kids. It makes it even worse. And again, makes me sick to my stomach.
Right.
Jan mentioned the guy from the mall. Yes, the mall in Indiana was a gun-free zone. That is correct. which means nothing to the deranged and the criminal who just want to use, they want to hurt you. All it
And-
means to them is they have an advantage because you're not supposed to have a gun and they're criminals. They
it
don't
was a
follow
good
the
thing that-
law.
It was a good thing that Mr. Dickon didn't see the sign that day.
Thank God.
Thank God he didn't see the sign.
It's like
But-
in Uvalde where the one guy who was at the barber shop, thank God he was getting his hair cut that day, ran over to his wife, got his gun, and went into the school and actually did what the cops wouldn't do. Thank God there are human beings, American citizens, that are willing to stand up.
Well, here's the thing about that, though. I don't want to, come off like I'm correcting you, but according to different AP stories, they're saying that may or may not have happened. That the Uvalde shooter was taken out by the tactical team
Oh, I didn't hear that.
and not by an off-duty INS agent that happened over there.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's true or not. Until and unless I have the name of the person and I can speak to him and verify and account the veracity of the story, I can't say we can make that claim.
Fair enough.
You know,
Fair enough.
I don't know. It's
I
not.
just know it was widely reported by the
It's
credible news media.
It's not Jack Wilson. It's not Stephen Williford. It's not a situation that we saw unfold in front of us where we
Sure.
actually spoke to the guy and said, "Hey, you put down the bad guy." We don't know what the story is with that. We do know the Dickens situation. We know that it was a good guy. Now, as far as the Uvalde goes, when I said that they were ill-equipped, ill-trained, and ill-prepared, doesn't necessarily mean all three. Part of being equipped is not only about your guns, it's about your frame of mind. If you're not equipped with the fight mechanism, you're ill-equipped. You can have all the guns in the world. If you don't have the will and the commitment to utilize them in a fashion that you would expect, which means going towards the danger and putting the danger down, you're ill-equipped to do the job. Doesn't matter your equipment. It's your level of equip. Are you mentally equipped? Are you physically equipped? Are you equipped with the proper equipment? As far as being prepared, I'm talking about being prepared for these events by training for them, by knowing what to do when you respond, to one of these events. Do you have a tactical game plan? I talk to people all the time about what happens if your house catches fire and you have a family inside the house. Do you have a checkpoint outside? Do you have a meetup point outside? Because 75% of deaths that occur in fires in this country are men. You know why that is? Because he goes back in to get the rest of his family out. You know why he goes back in? Because the family didn't meet up at one specific location where the parents could ascertain, is everybody here? So what happens is the children are behind the fire engine. The wife is at the ambulance. The father's standing in the driveway wondering, where the hell is my family? Goes back in, smoke inhalation. 30 seconds later, him, the dog, the cat, and the fish are all dead. If you're not prepared for a scenario by training, you have to train for what happens if. There's so much that goes into this. Now, nobody knows if you're going to have that, how you're going to respond to an emergency situation until you're in an emergency situation. You have, what is the statistic? 95% of police officers never draw their firearm during the course of their job.
97.5.
97 never,
according to Harvard.
Never draw their firearm. Never draw their firearm. That means that's the same amount of police officers who's never had to respond to a situation with enough prescient emergency that they are using the fight or flight mechanism. Our service members, on the other hand, if a service member has a combat badge or a combat merit, these are people that have engaged in one capacity or another, are much more likely to be able to respond to a situation at a school. So why are we not utilizing this untapped resource?
Yeah, makes sense.
And it's because of the stigma associated with military. They have PTSD, they're unreliable, they're dangerous to themselves, they're dangerous to the community. Oh, we can still send them off to war, but we We can make them drive a $60 million tank, but we can't let them drive a $20,000 forklift.
That's the crap that came out of Vietnam. The very same progressives that are in charge right now had made up all those arguments. We've had military for the existence of America, and that's just such crap. I hate that they keep trying to promote that, especially in movies and entertainment, to try and sell this idea to people, because it's not realistic about PTSD or anything else. Pete,
just to name a few: Teddy Roosevelt,
you got something.
John F. Kennedy, Dwight D. Eisenhower. These are all men that were highly decorated members of the military who rose to the most powerful level in the world. Did being an active member of the service with a combat certification disqualify them from leading a nation? No. And from the best that I can tell, each of those three did a pretty damn good job at their job.
Yeah.
We may be able to disagree on policy-wise, but I think they did a pretty good job, those guys. Those were veterans. Why can't we trust our veterans, the men and women who protect our nation, to protect our schools? Because they don't want the schools protected.
It's a sad reality. It's a sad reality.
Why do they want the American people disarmed? Because they want us vulnerable. They want everybody to be a minion, to be a slave, to be a subject, and to be at their will. Because all the people that want to take your means of protecting yourselves away are the same people who think they're going to be the ones in charge of administering the protection. And so long as they think they're going to be in charge, they're very happy knowing that you can't challenge them for the position.
Besides, if you hire security guards, there'll be no funds for gender studies or bathroom sign changes or, I don't know, things like that.
Flow rate of ketchup, shrimp on a treadmill. Whether or not the bees on one side of a town are happier than the bees on the other side of town, and whether or not that has anything to do with the color of cars driving through the neighborhood.
You're kidding.
I think
yes, that's a study that they gave $5 million to.
Don't worry, Pete. Go ahead. Just cut them off. I do it all the time.
I was quite interested with the story. I mean, the story's a couple of years old now, but it's about the mom that wanted the school board to cut down every single nut-bearing tree between her house and the school because her child had a nut allergy.
What?
I believe it was California. She wanted the school, wanted every single nut-bearing tree between her home and the school cut down, killed, because her child had a severe nut allergy.
I'd be sending my kid to school every day with peanut
butter
flavored shampoo gel in their hair.
I found it.
See? It's not made up. That's a real story.
I got to show you guys. I actually found it. That's what I was just.
And I bet you the woman is probably against homeschooling and school vouchers.
I thought it had to be a made up story. I thought it had to be fake. Like this is like just a rumor, urban legend. No, according to this is coming from the Globe and Mail, credible news organization. Mom wants City Oaks torn down to protect kids with nut allergy. November 13th, 2012.
That long ago. Okay. Now see, now we're getting old.
I mean, it doesn't matter that it's old. It's real.
It's just the fact that someone feels that they're entitled enough that the world needs to stop because they have a problem. And granted, they have a legitimate problem, but it is their problem.
Yeah,
now,
but
I do
if
need
the
to
world
mention
doesn't bend to the
that
whim
was in
of
Ontario.
that one person.
I do need to mention that was in Ontario, so it's Canada, where they're screwed.
Oh, let them cut the trees down then.
They're out of their minds. But
it's not Canada, it's China.
Yeah, really.
It's not Canada, it's China.
But it's the same logic. The logic, I guarantee you, there are people who heard that. I guarantee you, there's some left-leaning progressive who heard, oh yeah, you know what? I should get they're right. We should have all the nut trees cut down around schools because of kids' allergies, which makes no bloody sense in the universe. But they would think that. because they're not thinking, they're feeling, they're letting their emotions run away, and they think, oh, but they said I'm safe, so I can feel safe. No substance, no reality.
No fact.
They told me
Feeling.
that Biden's going around on his tour next week to 20 states, telling people that the economy is doing fantastic. The Fed just said that unemployment is going to 4.5%, that they're continuing to raise rates, and we are in a recession, which I have mentioned on this channel and my own channel for about 2 years now. And they're just now saying that, and Biden's running around going, the economy is great. Don't you know how great the economy is? What is going on in this world?
The report today that came out is right now we're currently at the highest spread between average rental and average mortgage payment that since 2006. We're looking at 2008 all over again. It's coming. In my industry, which happens to be construction, I mean, that's one of the first indicators of what's going to fall is how construction, housing, and basically real estate and loan. And right now, as of now, we are at the same place we were in 2006. The difference between your average rent and your average mortgage payment is almost $1,200 a month.
That's ridiculous.
And people cannot afford to buy anymore. Interest rates are through the roof. Prices are through the roof. Once again, just what happened before the housing bubble in 2008. We are approaching that level again. Banks are failing again.
Mm-hmm.
Banks are being bailed out again. Credit Suisse today, they're still in trouble over there.
Deutsche Bank is in trouble now.
We are buy crypto.
I'm not going to go there with you.
Don't go there. Once again, I'm not saying put all your money in crypto. Put your money in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get you.
You got your 10% in bullets. I got my 10% in bullets and another 10% in crypto.
Oh, well, just to let you know that when you have enough bullets laying around that you could fill your gumball machines with extras, you're on the right track.
Well, I will say
it means you're only 10% of the way there.
I will say that the message of this channel is, I mean, people think that we're in the minority, and we're obviously not. I don't know if anyone saw it, but I posted earlier this week on the Liberty First Facebook page. There is this guy out there, this rapper now, Mr. Tom McDonald.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him.
Okay, I'm not a fan of rap music,
Neither am I.
I'm a big fan of his lyrics.
Yeah, he's got good ones.
He's got some very good lyrics, and we recently did something with John Rich, country star. They just did a song together. If you go look at what I had posted and watch their little live stream that they did a couple of nights ago, it is literally a copy of what is discussed here on a weekly basis. The whole point of what I'm saying here, though, is this rapper now, Tom McDonald, for the second time in a row, is #1 on the Billboard charts.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, you know, if people didn't like the message, it wouldn't be #1. People always say that we're in the majority, that we're not being heard. We're the minority. We're not being heard. What we're saying, nobody feels this way. No one felt this way. It wouldn't be #1 on the Billboard charts. People are listening to this message. People are hearing this message. People are agreeing with this message.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, too many people are not willing to come forward and say this message or agree with this message. And if it has to be through music, which through in US history, that is the way that it's done a lot. It's through
True.
the music that comes out. Look at the music that is now number one. And also both times with these artists, the fact that they have no label, no representation. They don't have billion-dollar budgets and ad companies backing them up. They are independent artists that are number one. They are beating the system on a daily basis. They're being heard. So this is a smaller version of this rap star and this country star. But for everyone that is out there that watches this channel, I suggest you also listen to Tom McDonald and John Rich, because they're basically saying the same message, but you're being heard. People do feel the same way that you do. Do not be afraid to say what you think, what you feel, what the facts are. And just keep saying the facts, not the feelings.
Yeah. Feelings.
That is what I have been ranting on this past couple of weeks, is looking at the undertones and the undercurrent of where our nation is right now. And it's coming out in the music. It's coming out. It's starting to come out in entertainment, and it's all independent. It's not the big labels. It's not the big movie powerhouses. It's not, you're not going to see it in a Marvel movie. They're not allowed to say it. Look at the smaller artists.
You talk about Marvel. The only thing I could really remember about one message that was in the Marvel movie, I don't mean to have to quote this, but the one thing that it was Captain America on the plane, and he's talking to Agent Coulson about, he says, I'm talking about his uniform that he's wearing on a plane, and he says, well, I don't know, it's kind of old fashioned.
Yes.
And Coulson says, well, I think America needs a little bit of old fashioned right about now.
Yeah.
And that was the first Avengers movies, what, 9 years ago now?
No, more than that. It's 10 or 11.
Well, however long it was, there was a seed planted there. There was a seed planted there, and no matter how many times I watched the Avenger franchise, the only times, and I've seen every one of the Avenger movies in the theater, the only time that I have ever seen the crowd get up and stand up or applaud or scream at the top of their lungs to cheer is when it was for Captain America. It wasn't for Iron Man showing up to save the day because it was always anticlimactic or something like that. It was about when it was always at the darkest moment in the whole thing, and everything was about to go to hell, and Captain America showed up. And there was just something in the movie that made audiences reach out, and they felt it. Everyone who ever watched it, whether it was when he shows up out of the darkness just in the matter of time to save the day, when he's the only one that can pick up Thor's hammer, when he is the one that could do all this stuff, when he did it. Those are the moments of the Marvel franchise that people in America, because it was something purely American, purely old-fashioned, purely that sense of that's who you want to be. That's who you want your nation to be. That's what you want. And I think you're starting to get some of that revival now in a lot of people. And I think, Pete, you're telling them right. Don't be afraid. Stand up. Talk. I mean,
we haven't had it in 20 years.
Pete's not a public person. Pete's not a public person. He doesn't work in the public. He works in a private sector. He does his job. He doesn't leave his basement, his dungeon. That's where he works. He says, as you can tell, he's a prisoner because nobody will even let him shave his face. He got the beard. That's it. You know,
I'm going to screw you all up, and 2 weeks from now, I'm going to come out all GQ again.
Oh God, that'll
there
be.
you go.
I don't know what your face actually looks like without the beard. So
Take it from here, glue it up here. It will be
Yeah. Well, that's why I have to wear the hat. Otherwise, it would just be. I got a light right over my head. That's why it's the hat every week.
Yeah, but I mean, like Vass is a public face.
Yeah, sadly,
Thousands and thousands of people know Vass, and he says the message. I get on camera and I shoot stuff. Not a lot of people get in my face and yell back at me. You know, if they recognize my face, they're gonna pretty much know that I'm. Maybe that's not the guy you want to argue with. But I don't care. I talk to people all the time. I'm not going to work for somebody else. I don't have to worry about a corporate job. I don't have to worry about an image. I'm not worried about politics. I don't worry about my words coming back. I say what I say and I don't give a shit. I don't worry about nothing. I know there's a lot of people that worry about, I can't say this because I'll get fired. Like, you know how many people I know that are ultra conservative, or they claim to be the ultra conservative people on Facebook or Twitter. They don't use their own names.
No, they're always anonymous, hidden, never show their faces. Yeah.
I'm like, you know, there was a time when at least one person in this country said, I signed my name large enough so the king could read it without his spectacles.
Yes.
And now we have men who will profess to be, you know, the apex example of alpha manliness, won't put their name on a public post on Facebook because they're afraid of how it's going to affect them at work. It's afraid of how this is going to happen or that's going to happen. Where are your testicles? Where are they? Where the hell are they, guys? Come on. Stand the hell up and let yourself be heard. I mean, how many people voted for Trump that won't even admit they voted for Trump because they're afraid they're going to be portrayed badly in the media? Maybe if you all grew a set and said, I don't care who says what about me, maybe the world would be a little bit of a better place. Maybe you'd raise your kids stronger so that your kids don't grow up to be weak, feckless, without guidance, not knowing when they look in their underwear which way they're supposed to go. I mean, come on. Without a strong male backbone in this country, we're lost. Women want strong men. Men want strong women. Together, you make strong families. Strong families make strong nations.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
None of this is possible if you don't have courage.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. Absolutely true.
Say the thing that's unpopular. Question what's popular.
I have to question how that isn't popular anymore. Why would it never? How could that not be popular? It's the reason why we all exist today. It's just that simple. That's why we're here. That's how we got here. We wouldn't be here any other way. And you're right, Jan. We, and the we is the we as in we the people, we the nation. We need to speak up. It's the only way, because I mean that resolves all the issues we've been talking about today, whether it's international, domestic, whether it's schools or that mandates, whether it's anything, everything we talked about today, everything we talk about each week. If people were to speak up, even half as much as they would want to, the world will be different. It'd be a lot more peaceful. It'd be a lot more free. I really believe that. And I don't see any evidence that tells me I'm wrong. I see lots of evidence that says doing the opposite isn't working. See, lots of evidence of that. Being silent isn't making things better. We can prove that one easy. Just look at any nightly news report. It's crazy.
It's a rough world. Well, listen, everybody, we're in this 2 hours and 5 minutes this evening. We've once again run over. We'd like to have a big thanks to our sponsors. Oh, sorry, wait. We don't have any sponsors. But we'd like to have a big thanks sent to our little folks that participate and come and join us every week. Without you, we have no reason to do this. So we thank you, we love you, and we appreciate you guys for being here and spending the time with us, because otherwise it's a couple of idiots talking to ourselves. I do that most of the day anyway. But
not all day long.
All right. Vass, do us a favor. Remind everybody where and when they can find you on the interwebs and stuff like that.
Like you can see it above me. It's no sound bites allowed with an eye. Every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I do a live stream reaching out across the world, talking about international, domestic, everything. I try and cover everything. It regularly goes anywhere from a minimum of about 3 hours to 5.5. Isn't unusual. And that's me. That's me pretty much talking and some people calling in.
Yeah, and I've caught the beginnings of your show, the middles of your show, and at the end of your show, and then I can't believe it's all been the same show. And I'm like, I don't understand how you can go that long. It's like the Ever Ready Rabbit. Do you use a stadium, pal?
Well, the longest I've ever gone is literally exactly 12 hours. That was last year on my birthday. And I hope to break that this year on my birthday, April 6th. I'm going to go live. I was live the entire time. No breaks, 12 hours straight. This year, I want to break 12 hours nonstop. And then I don't talk for like 2 days after that.
The man with the strongest bladder in broadcasting.
Yeah. That's the hard part. That's really the hard part. Yeah.
All right. You guys might remember last couple of weeks ago, we had Raul Mendez on the show.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And Raul went through and told us of his horrific situation that he had with the shooting out in Phoenix, Arizona on July 3rd of last year, to which he was severely injured and yet still managed to save the lives of 25 or more people at the party by taking out an active shooter. Raul, whose GoFundMe page has been severely neglected by the Second Amendment and Patriot community, we have been putting up the link for that. If you guys should happen to come across that, please, if you could spare $1 or $2, whatever you could spare the kids, he needs some help. He's got well over $100,000 in medical bills, and he's not getting any assistance in paying them, even though he should. So, since that's going to be a long, protracted legal battle for him to get rid of his bills, he still has a long, protracted medical battle because he still has shrapnel inside of his brain, and he's suffering from bad headaches. He's in pain every day. He's already lost an eye. He's deaf in one ear, and he has no sense of smell or taste. I don't know if you could imagine going through life like that, but this is the price that one hero paid to save others, and we owe him a debt of gratitude. And that being in mind, myself and Raul will be appearing this week on the Loaded Mic podcast hosted by Dan Wass on Monday at 5 p.m. During this weekend, if you guys can check it out, I will be posting the links to Dan's show on the Liberty First Foundation Facebook page. I hope you guys can copy the link and share it amongst your friends, because we are really trying to get as much support for Raul as we can. And Dan hosts a great show, and he's been on here with us. We're going to be going on his show with much more regularity. We're going to be sharing a lot of our content and a lot of our ideas, because where the community fails to come together, the little bits of us that are trying are going to be like a magnet, and we are just going to keep attracting and attracting and attracting. And if nobody's going to provide us with the source of power to attract others, we're going to provide it ourselves. So, but we need your help in doing that. So when you see the links, please like it, share it, subscribe to Not only no sound bites allowed, subscribe to the Loaded Mic podcast, subscribe to the Range Report on YouTube. That's very important. And the good news, we spoke last week about a firearm that wasn't quite working. Spoke to the engineers. We're working something out with them right now, and we're going to come to the determination and find out what the status is going to be. But that same company is sending a replacement firearm and an additional firearm, so we have an additional review. And if everything works out the way we intend, we'll just hold that surprise for another day. But listen, this is Frank from Liberty First Foundation and the Range Report. I want to wish you all a happy weekend. Thank you all. We love you guys. You guys be safe and shoot straight. And I'll leave it up to these guys to send us off.
After you, Pete.
After me. What do I have to say? Gentlemen, thank you once again for having me, being another head in a box. Once again, I'm here to keep you honest. That's why I'm so damn quiet, because there's nothing to say except for came in.
I'm trying to hold your hand, Pete.
I can't get used to
You can't figure out which side is which.
It's been a long week around here. But once again, I'm here to keep you honest. You're all honest. I can't even counterpoint on anything because you can't fight with people who are right. So, gentlemen, thank you for once again having me. And I'll shut up. And you need to make my box a lot smaller and just keep it up in the corner. When I'm ready to start yelling, I'll go like this. Because you don't need me here.
Well, soon we will be joined back by our regular hosts, Michael Marshall, who should be joining up. Michael has got a lot of commitments to his family and to his day job that he's trying to fulfill, and the poor guy is working himself to a bone and he's not sleeping. So he said, "Hey, I'm really exhausted. Is there any way I can bow out today?" We're like, "Dude, don't worry about it. I'll hit the little buttons at the bottom of the screen that you guys don't get to see because that's the production part of the show." So I says, "I'll handle those." And says, as long as I got Pete and Vass over here to back my stupid ass up, I should be all right. Because Vass knows the technology, Pete knows the other stuff. I don't know nothing except bullets and shit like that. So, Vass, please sign us out. I'm gonna go get myself a cup of coffee.
All right. Here's something different. So this comes from the Twilight Zone. The episode is The Obsolete Man, and I think it's kind of appropriate. If you haven't seen The Twilight Zone, I don't know who you are, but the episode's The Obsolete Man, and this is the closing narration that was so important that Rod Serling actually showed up on screen to say it. And I'm only going to read part of it, and he says, "The state, the entity he worshipped, it was obsolete. Any state, any entity, any ideology which fails to recognize the worth, the dignity, the rights of man, that state is obsolete. A case to be filed under M for Mankind." From the Twilight Zone. Kind of fits.
It's Rod Serling, a native of Binghamton, New York.
Yeah.
The carousel capital of the world.
Scary thing, but yeah.
I got chastised on Facebook because I said something critical about Binghamton, and somebody said, "You don't even live here. You got no right to say anything about Binghamton."
Really?
Like, lady, you don't know.
Yeah.
Go grab a couple old newspapers. We'll see how much I don't have a right. But
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, listen, we're gonna sign off. We'll let you guys be you. You guys be safe. Shoot straight. We love you all.